man. These distinctions and unifications are matters of form, symbols in speech, and are used to express events and happenings in the world of energies and forces in connection with which man is definitely implicated. It is to these unifications that we refer, when the subject of initiation is under consideration. The life thread, the silver cord or the sutratma, is, as far as man is concerned, dual in nature. The life thread proper, which is one of the two threads which constitute the antahkarana, is anchored in the heart, whilst the other thread, which embodies the principle of consciousness, is anchored in the head. This you already know, but this I feel the need constantly to reiterate. In the work of the evolutionary cycle, however, man has to repeat what God has already done. He must himself create, in both the world of consciousness and of life. Like a spider, man spins connecting threads, and thus bridges and makes contact with his environment, thereby gaining experience and sustenance. The spider symbol is often used in the ancient occult books, and the scriptures, of India in connection with this activity of the human being. The threads which man creates are triple, and with the two basic threads which have been created by the soul, constitute the 5 types of energy which make man a conscious human being. The triple threads created by man are anchored in the solar plexus, the head and the heart. When the astral body and the mind nature are beginning to function as a unit, and the soul also is consciously connected, do not forget that it is always unconsciously linked. An extension of this 5-fold thread, the basic 2 and the human 3, is carried to the throat center. When that occurs, man can become a conscious creator on the physical plane. From these major lines of energy, lesser lines can radiate at will. It is upon this knowledge that all future intelligent psychic unfoldment must be based. In the above paragraph, and its implications, you have a brief and inadequate statement as to the science of the antahkarana. I have endeavored to express this in terms, symbolic if you will, which will convey some general idea of the process to your minds. We can learn much through the use of the pictorial and visual imagination. Many aspirants have already established the following links of the bridging antahkarana. 1. From the physical to the vital, or etheric body. This is really an extension of the life thread between the heart and the spleen. 2. From the physical and the vital, regarding them as a unity, to the astral or emotional vehicle. This thread emanates from, or is anchored in, the solar plexus, and is carried upward by means of the aspiration till it anchors itself in the love petals of the egoic lotus. 3. From the physical and astral vehicles to the mental body. One terminal is anchored in the head, and the other in the knowledge petals of the egoic lotus, being carried forward by an act of the will. Many, too, are in process of linking the 3 lower aspects, which we call the personality, with the soul itself, through meditation, discipline, service and directed attention. When this has been accomplished, a definite relation is established between the sacrifice, or will petals of the egoic lotus and the head and heart centers, thus producing a synthesis between consciousness, the soul and the life principle. The process of establishing this interlinking and interrelation, and the strengthening of the bridge thus constructed, goes on until the 3rd initiation. The lines of force are then so interrelated that the soul, and its mechanism of expression are a unity. A higher blending and fusing can then go on. It is necessary for me to stop at this point and indicate that all the above are simply word pictures of the process of energy interrelations, and have a definite value if they can introduce and make real to you the fact of the indicated processes. Some aspirants and students have the mystical consciousness highly developed, and are therefore apt to resent and regard as unnecessary the more technical and intellectual presentation of a truth which they sense and know, but which remains a truth yet undefined. It is my purpose, to assist you towards a greater definiteness of realization and expression. This should in no way detract from the wonder and the beauty of what you sense, but should increase your power to know and also to make available to others the knowledge which you have gained. In the past, the mystic expressed his realization through love and practical kindness, expressing it on the physical plane through charitable deeds and self-sacrifice, and on emotional levels by his aspiration, his vision, and his ability to express the love of God to the world. The mystic today continues with the same process, but under the evolutionary urge becomes capable of more than this. He should be able to formulate his knowledge intelligently and to express his awareness clearly, in order that he may share it with the public, which is steadily growing in intelligence, but greatly needs the vision. I therefore beg of you not to resent the technical formulation of truth, for if education means anything at all, and if we are to consider the ways in which education is to be applied to bring about this bridging and synthesis, it is essential that we avoid that mental laziness and mystical inertia which are characteristic of so many mystics and the line of least resistance for many would-be disciples. It is necessary therefore that we grasp the facts that 1. The new education will primarily be concerned with the scientific and conscious bridging between the various aspects of the human being, thus producing coordination and synthesis and an increased expansion of consciousness through the establishing of right lines of energy. 2. The task of the new education is therefore the coordination of the personality, eventually bringing about its at-one-ment with the soul. 3. The new education will deal with, analyze and interpret the laws of thought, because the mind will be regarded as the link between the soul and the brain. These laws are the means whereby a. Ideas are intuited. b. Ideals are promulgated. c. Mental concepts, or thought forms are constructed which in due time will make their impact telepathically upon the minds of men. 4. The new education will organize and develop the lower concrete mind. 5. It will teach the human being to think from universals to particulars, as well as to undertake the analysis of particulars. There will consequently be less emphasis in future schools upon the training of the memory. Interest will greatly aid the will to recall. 6. The new education will make a man a good citizen by developing the rational aspects of his consciousness and life, teaching him to use his inherited, acquired and endowed equipment for the evidencing of the social consciousness and attitudes. 7. Above all else, the educators in the new age will endeavor to teach man the science of unifying the three aspects of himself which are covered by the general title of mental aspects. A. The lower concrete mind. B. The son of mind, the soul, the self. C. The higher, abstract or intuitional mind. Or A. The receptive mind or common sense. B. The individualized mind. C. The illuminating mind. 8. The educators in the new age will deal with the processes, or methods to be employed in bridging the gaps in consciousness between the different aspects. Thus the science of the Anticana will be brought definitely to the attention of the public. 9. The extension of this concept of bridging will be developed to include, not only the internal history of man, but also the bridging between him and his fellowmen on all levels. 10. It will include also the training of the human mechanism to respond to life impacts, and to the soul. This soul is essentially intelligence, vitally used on each plane. It functions as the discriminating mind on the mental plane, as the sensitive consciousness on the emotional plane, and as the active participator in physical life. This intelligent activity is always used from the wisdom angle. 11. The new education will take into consideration A. The mind and its relation to the energy body, the etheric body, which underlies the nervous system and which galvanizes the physical body into activity. B. The mind and its relation to the brain. C. The mind and its relation to the 7 centers of force in the etheric body, and their externalization and utilization, through the medium of the major nerve plexi to be found in the human body, and their relation, which will become increasingly obvious, to the endocrine glands. D. The brain as the coordinating factor in the dense body, and its capacity to direct the activities of the man through the medium of the nervous system. In the above statements you will see how large is our theme, and yet it is one which I intend to cover with the utmost brevity, writing only a fundamental textbook which will serve as a signpost for the production of the new culture which will distinguish the Aquarian age. Other disciples will later elaborate my theme, but the subject is as yet so little understood, that much that could be said would be meaningless, even to the most intelligent. Modern education is beginning to give some attention to the nature of the mind, and to the laws of thought. In this connection we owe much to psychology and philosophy. There is also an increasing interest in the science of endocrinology, as a material means of producing changes, usually in deficient children and morons. Nevertheless, until modern educators begin to admit the possibility that there are central units in man which underlie the tangible and visible mechanism, and will also admit the possibility of a central powerhouse of energy behind the mind, progress in education will be relatively at a standstill. The child will not receive the initial training, and the foundational ideas which will enable him to become a self-directed, intelligent human being. Psychology, with its emphasis upon the 3 aspects of man: thought, emotional feeling, and the bodily organism, has already made a vital contribution and is doing much to bring about radical changes in our educational systems. Much remains to be done. The interpretation of men in terms of energy, and the grasping of the 7 types of energy which determine a man and his activities, will bring about immediate changes. Chapter I. The cultural unfoldment of the race civilization, and culture. Much emphasis is being laid today upon education coordinating, relational, psychological, vocational and equipping. To this must be added the old method of memory training, and the attempt either to infuse religion into the mind of the child, or to omit it with decision and with purpose. Modern education has been primarily competitive, nationalistic and, therefore, separative. It has trained the child to regard the material values as of major importance, to believe that his particular nation is also of major importance, and that every other nation is secondary. It has fed pride and fostered the belief that he, his group and his nation are infinitely superior to other people and peoples. He is taught consequently to be a one-sided person with his world values wrongly adjusted, and his attitudes to life distinguished by bias and prejudice. The rudiments of the arts are taught him in order to enable him to function with the needed efficiency in the competitive setting and in his particular vocational environment. To read, to write and to be able to add and do elementary arithmetic are regarded as the minimum requirement. To know something of past events, historical, geographical, literary, philosophical and scientific, are likewise added in many countries and for certain classes of people. Some of the literature of the world is also